Some criminals confess when they are apprehended, but many struggle to acknowledge their actions. In fact, some even go to great lengths to shift the blame onto others or external factors. Here are 4 cases where offenders attempted to deflect responsibility away from themselves. 1. Catherine Mary Knight murdered her boyfriend, then skinned him and attempted to feed pieces of his body to his children. Catherine Mary Knight, known for her record of torture and unhealthy relationships, was an abusing woman. In February 2000, a series of violent incidents between Price and Knight escalated when Knight stabbed Price in the chest. Frustrated by the ongoing abuse, Price decided to end their relationship and expelled her from his home. On February 29th, he stopped at the Scone Magistrates Court on his way to work to obtain a restraining order, aiming to keep Knight away from him and his children. That afternoon, Price confided in his co-workers, expressing his fear that if he didn't show up for work the next day, it would be because Knight had killed him. Despite their pleas for him to stay away from home, he insisted he had to return, fearing for his children's safety. Upon returning home, Price discovered that Knight had sent the children to a friend's house for a sleepover, although she was not present. He spent the evening with his neighbors and went to bed at 11 p.m. Earlier that day, Knight had purchased new black lingerie and recorded videos of her children, making comments that were later interpreted as a crude form of a will. Later that night, Knight arrived at Price's house while he was asleep, watched TV for a short time, and then took a shower. Afterward, she woke Price, and they had intercourse before he fell asleep. At 6 a.m. the following morning, a neighbor grew concerned when Price's car remained in the driveway. When he didn't show up for work, his employer sent someone to check on him. Both the neighbor and the worker knocked on Price's bedroom window to wake him. However, upon noticing blood on the front door, they contacted the police, who arrived at 8 a.m. After breaking down the back door, officers discovered Price's lifeless body, while Knight was found in a comatose state from an overdose of pills. She had stabbed Price with a butcher's knife while he was sleeping. According to the blood evidence, he awoke and tried to turn the light on before attempting to escape, while Knight chased him through the house. He managed to open the front door and get outside, but either stumbled back inside or was dragged back into the hallway where he finally died after bleeding out. Later, Knight went into Aberdeen and withdrew $1,000 from Price's ATM account. Price's autopsy revealed that he had been stabbed at least 37 times in both the front and back of his body, with many of the wounds extending into vital organs. Several hours after Price had died, Knight skinned him and hung the skin from a meat hook on the architrave of a door to the lounge room. She then decapitated him and cooked parts of his body, serving up the meat with baked potato, pumpkin, zucchini, cabbage, yellow squash, and gravy in 2 settings at the dinner table, along with notes beside each plate, each having the name of one of Price's children on it. She was preparing to serve his body parts to his children. A third meal was thrown on the back lawn for unknown reasons, and it is speculated Knight had attempted to eat it, but could not. And this has been put forward in support of her claim that she has no memory of the crime. Price's head was found in a pot with vegetables. The pot was still warm, estimated to be at between 40 and 50 degrees Celsius, indicating that the cooking had taken place in the early morning. Sometime later, Knight arranged the body with the left arm draped over an empty 1.25-liter soft drink bottle with the legs crossed. This was claimed in court to be an act of defilement demonstrating Knight's contempt for Price. Knight had left a handwritten note on top of a photograph of Price. Blood-stained and covered with small pieces of flesh, the note read, "Time got you back, Johathan, for raping my daughter. You to Beck, Price's daughter. For Ross, for Little John, his son. Now play with Little John's dick, John Price. Sick." The accusations in the note were found to be groundless. Knight was arrested, still refused to accept responsibility for her actions. Her offer to plead guilty was rejected and was sentenced life imprisonment. 2. Jesse Michael Anderson murdered his wife and blamed it on two black men. Jesse Michael Anderson was an American criminal who gained notoriety for the murder of his wife, Barbara Anderson. In an attempt to evade responsibility, he inflicted wounds on himself and falsely alleged that they had been attacked by two black men. On April 21, 1992, the Andersons enjoyed a movie and dinner at a TGI Fridays near the Northridge Mall in northwest Milwaukee. Following their meal, Jesse stabbed Barbara multiple times, 5 times in the face and head, before turning the knife on himself, inflicting 4 superficial wounds to his chest. Barbara succumbed to her injuries 2 days later, falling into a coma after the attack. Anderson claimed that their assailants were 2 black men. He presented police with a Los Angeles Clippers cap, asserting it belonged to one of the attackers. However, a university student soon informed authorities that Anderson had purchased the cap from him just days prior. Further investigation revealed that a military surplus store had sold the red-handled fishing knife used in Barbara's murder to Anderson weeks earlier, making it a unique piece of evidence. On April 29, 1992, Anderson was charged with murder. His trial concluded on August 13, resulting in a conviction. He received a life sentence, eligible for parole after 60 years. On November 28, 1994, while incarcerated at Columbia Correctional Institution, Anderson was involved in a tragic incident with fellow inmate and serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer. During a cleaning detail, Christopher Scarver attacked both men with a steel bar after a confrontation. Dahmer died shortly after the assault, while Anderson succumbed to his injuries 2 days later, following the removal of life support at the University of Wisconsin Hospital in Madison. 3. Brad Ray murdered his wife, tried to pin the crime on his own young daughter. On February 8, 2006, Tammy Ray, a 41-year-old mother and wife from Pierre, South Dakota, was reported missing. Interestingly, it was not her husband, Brad Ray, 46, or their 12-year-old daughter, Haley, who made the call. Instead, it was Brian Clark, a co-worker from Kmart with whom Tammy was having an affair. Clark alerted the 911 operator, suggesting that foul play could be suspected. When pressed for details, he revealed, "Me and her have been having an affair, and apparently her husband has found out about it." From the outset, the case was tangled in complexities. Detectives were unsure whether Clark's report was genuine or a strategy to shift suspicion away from himself. A welfare check at the Ray home quickly raised concerns. In the garage, blood was found on the floor and dripping from Tammy's Dodge Durango, later confirmed to be hers. Inside the vehicle, a strong smell of cleaning solution hinted at an attempted cover-up. Mark Barnett, a former prosecutor for Hughes County, remarked, "That's a homicide every day." Authorities questioned Brad about Tammy's disappearance. He acknowledged her affair, but claimed ignorance about Clark's identity. He recounted an incident that night where he heard a car outside and assumed it was Tammy with her lover. His alibi was partially corroborated by a state trooper who had recorded an interaction with him. Meanwhile, Clark maintained he had been with Tammy the night before her disappearance, but returned home afterward, a statement supported by his wife's confirmation. As detectives scrutinized Brad, his alibi appeared increasingly shaky. During questioning, he made a puzzling remark about Tammy's body containing something that could set me free, which was interpreted as a reference to DNA evidence. Just a day after Tammy vanished, Brad was arrested on suspicion of her murder, although authorities needed her body for more concrete evidence. On February 10th, a National Guard helicopter located Tammy's naked body in a remote area north of Pierre. Tammy had been stabbed over 36 times. Todd Love, a former prosecutor, described the murder as very vengeful, very rageful. Further investigation at the Ray home uncovered a digital recorder revealing that Brad was aware of Clark's identity, contradicting his earlier claims of ignorance. A significant turn occurred when investigators received an anonymous letter implicating Clark, alleging that Tammy had been raped and that evidence was left behind. Although a second autopsy revealed a condom inside her body, the evidence had deteriorated, offering no leads on the killer. Questions arose about whether Brad had planted the condom to frame Clark. Meanwhile, the letters were later traced back to Brett Ray, Brad's twin brother, who was arrested as an accessory to murder but served only 172 days in jail after testifying against Brad. Eventually, it became clear that Brad had orchestrated a chilling plan. He killed Tammy while she slept, then attempted to hide the evidence by covering their mattress with a tarp. In a surprising defense, Brad attempted to blame his daughter, claiming she was the real killer, a narrative Haley vehemently denied, calling her father a cold-hearted murderer. She has since become an advocate for victims' rights. During the trial, Tammy's mother condemned Brad for his attempts to shift blame onto Haley. In January 2007, a jury found Brad guilty of first-degree murder, rejecting his claims about his daughter's supposed involvement. He received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. 4. Mark Hacking murdered his wife and reported her missing. Mark Hacking dialed 911 to report his wife, Lori, missing. At 27 years old, Lori had gone for her usual jog in the Memory Grove and City Creek Canyon area, northeast of downtown Salt Lake City, but failed to return home or show up at work. A witness claimed to have seen her jogging that day, but later retracted the statement. Family members revealed that Lori was approximately 5 weeks pregnant at the time of her disappearance. She had plans to relocate to North Carolina, where Mark had claimed he would be attending medical school at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. However, police uncovered that Mark had misled friends and family regarding his educational background. He did not hold an undergraduate degree from the University of Utah and had never applied to medical school. Following Lori's disappearance, Mark was found running naked in the streets and was subsequently admitted for a mental health evaluation. During his hospitalization, he sought the expertise of D. Gilbert Athay, a well-known defense attorney in the area. On August 2, 2004, Mark was arrested on suspicion of aggravated murder. Authorities believed he acted alone, allegedly killing Lori with a .22 caliber rifle while she slept and disposing of her body in a dumpster. Blood was discovered in multiple locations within their apartment, including on a knife found in the bedroom and in Lori's vehicle. Mark's brothers, Scott and Lance, reported that he confessed to the murder after they confronted him on July 24th. On October 1, 2004, human remains were found in the Salt Lake County landfill, confirmed later that day to be Lori's. Investigators also located the carpet Mark admitted to using to wrap her body before disposal. On October 29th, despite his brother Paul Suarez urging him to plead guilty to spare the family further anguish, Mark pleaded not guilty to first-degree murder. Investigators revealed that the night before her disappearance, Lori had written Mark a note indicating her intention to leave him upon discovering the truth about his lies regarding his education. Rather than face a divorce, Mark chose to kill her. On April 15, 2005, Mark entered a guilty plea for first-degree murder, resulting in prosecutors dropping additional charges. He was sentenced to 6 years to life on June 6, 2005, the maximum sentence allowed under Utah law at that time. Sentences in Utah are indeterminate, meaning offenders must serve their entire term unless released earlier by the Board of Pardons. In July 2005, the Utah Board of Pardons announced that Mark would not be eligible for parole until at least 2035, indicating he would serve a minimum of 30 years. Board Chairman Mike Sibbett cited multiple aggravating factors, including Mark's obstruction of justice and the disposal of Lori's body, as reasons for the extended parole period. Lori's mother, Thelma Swartz, expressed relief at the decision, stating that the initial 6-year minimum was an insult to her family. The Swartz family chose to remove Mark's name from Lori's headstone, replacing it with Filhinha, which means little daughter in Portuguese, reflecting their belief that he no longer valued her. The initial sentencing sparked public outrage, leading to calls for reform in Utah's sentencing laws. On March 20, 2006, Utah House Bill 102, known as Lori's Law, was enacted, mandating that those convicted of first-degree murder must serve a minimum of 15 years before being considered for parole. On June 6, 2005, Mark's father issued a statement on behalf of the family, which included Mark's own words expressing remorse and a desire for forgiveness. He acknowledged the pain caused by his actions and urged others to avoid the path of deceit. In June 2006, it was reported that Mark attempted to sell personal items online, including autographs and other memorabilia, which led to prison officials intervening. He ultimately agreed to cease these activities,